Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Podluck, a conversation podcast about the intersection between culture, faith, and the Korean American Adventist experience. My name is Chris. I'm a pastor in Portland, and I'm here with my co-host Jason in Southern California. Jason, how's everything going?
It's good. We just got back from our East Coast travels. My kids are kind of on East Coast side. They wake up at like 5 in the morning, which has been fantastic.
And they bother you at 5 in the morning?
Yeah. So this morning they both woke up at 5:30 at the same time, and they'll play like Spider-Man, so they throw things at each other, trampoline. They're not coordinated, so they'll like jump on me. Randomly, the youngest one decided he wanted to just like play with my hand, so he's just like grabbing my fingers and like pulling on it. Yeah, and then at 7,
and then when he pulls your finger, do you let one go? That'll teach him.
No, I don't think it will actually. They're boys, so whenever I fart, they think it's like the funniest thing in the world, and then they try to fart, and then I'm worried like something else will happen.
Oh yeah. That's crazy. Oh man. It's crazy being a parent, dude.
Crazy being a parent, especially of two boys. There's a lot of stuff on Instagram about like the joys of being like girl dad and boy dad, girl mom, boy mom. I don't know, what's it like having a daughter? I feel like it's a much more pleasant experience.
It's very pleasant. I love it actually. And I'm sorry for you. It's good though. She's very different. But because my daughter has an older brother, she has some like boy tendencies too.
Sure.
So because of her older brother, like last week we went up to the Seattle area for like a quick little trip, and we were at a Miniso, and it was kind of a special thing. So on these special trips, we try to like buy them some little toys or things to play with. And so my son, he wanted to buy a sword, and it's actually a pretty dope sword. It's like a foam sword, and it's a Minecraft knockoff where it's like pixelated kind of with squares, but then the sword part is actually a long foam sword, and it has a pixel design on it, and so you can actually fight with it. And so we were doing sword fighting in the store for a little bit. And my wife wasn't there, because if she wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to.
I was gonna say.
But we did it, and it was actually pretty fun. So I bought him two, and then in the hotel room, like my daughter and son were going at it in sword fighting. So she has that kind of spirit in her, which is really cool. But she also has a, kind of quiet, gentle spirit sometimes. She's not the most, like that picture of a daughter. Where she'll just like be so gentle and like ladylike. She's not like that, but she has that, and it's awesome. So you should just try for a third. Like, third time's a charm. That's what they say, right?
Let me get a little rant off right now. People
already
ask,
already we're doing a rant already.
No.
Okay.
They're like two boys. They go, and they always are like, don't you want a daughter? Yeah, obviously I want a daughter. Like, what kind of question is that? Yes. Like, try for third. Like, if I could choose a gender, we would have had a third already. Like, yeah, I don't know if they're like mocking me or what, but I'm like, yeah, of course I want a daughter. Like, what kind of question is that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to get that off my chest.
Thank you for that rant. Unexpected rant. That rant was not planned, everyone.
No, it was not.
But Jason, you were in Maryland where you grew up.
Yes.
And I know you went to East Coast Camp Meeting. We had that episode a little while ago. And the rest of the time you spent with family. Both your parents are there.
Yeah. So my entire family, with the exception of one cousin, still lives in Maryland.
Oh, your entire family except for one cousin?
Yeah, my one cousin is in Chicago now. Everyone else grew up in Maryland, stayed in Maryland, live in Maryland.
Oh, wow.
So that cousin and I are the I guess the oddballs of the family. We're also the only males of our family, which I don't know if that's part of it, but a lot of similarities actually. Because he moved, he studied in California and then went to Chicago, lived with his in laws for a while. Like I'm pretty much the same thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know.
So, what'd you guys do?
Um, yeah, so we went to camp meeting. We came back. It was more. I didn't plan stuff. I didn't try to reach out to a lot of people. The big thing was we went to the shore. So in Maryland, like there's the Chesapeake Bay, which kind of cuts Maryland almost in half, and so DC and all the like the main part of Maryland's on the western side of the bay, and on the eastern side is more rural, and that's where like the shore and the beaches are. And so we went to the eastern shore, and we got a house there. And I really want to take my son fishing because like I love fishing, and like Maryland fishing is very different from California fishing. I don't know how to fish in California. It's complicated. Everyone just goes on a boat, which I actually don't like. It's just I don't know. I just feel like it's not.
You feel like it's cheating?
I don't.
You
It's
feel like
not
it's cheating?
cheating, but it's like kind of. You just drop your line, and then you pull it.
That's the most fun part of fishing, dude.
Yeah, but there's like the part of like strategizing and like knowing where to go, setting up your line, what kind of bait are you going to use, what kind of fish are you targeting? Like cuz when you go on a boat, you're getting tuna or like the weird looking red fish, right?
I don't know, man. It's been a long time for me.
Yeah. Anyway, I love Maryland fishing, like fishing off a pier. So yeah, we got a house that had a pier in the back. It was unfortunate because it was like tons of seaweed, so you actually it's really hard to fish because your line gets tangled in the seaweed. But and it was a historic heat wave in DC, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
And so my kids didn't want to be outside, and so we did a little bit. We actually the only fish we caught were on the little like kid toy fishing rods we bought for my kids.
Oh, okay.
So he caught a baby stingray and
That's
a
actually pretty impressive.
baby spot. I mean, he did none of it. I did all of it, but we called it his fish because we caught it with his rod.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's cool. So you were there with your parents were there also?
Yeah, my parents were there. My sister and her husband came up for a day just to, get lunch and stuff. So yeah, my parents were there. We were with my parents a lot actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's kind of the topic of today's episode. And I don't know, it's just been something that I've been thinking about a lot. Our relationship with our aging parents. So my parents are down in Southern California. I was born and raised in LA. They still live there. They live in like pretty much the heart of K-Town. I get to see them every now and again. But like I've been thinking a lot about that. And so it's cool that you got to spend this time with them. And so I thought it would be interesting to explore this idea of our relationship with our parents and kind of like how it's changed since we were younger to, when we were like more independent in college and starting our careers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then now, like as they are aging. And again, for me, I'm thinking about this a lot because next year my dad is turning 80. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm thinking about what are we going to do? How are we going to celebrate? It doesn't help that my dad is like not helpful at all in this. Like he doesn't like to do anything. Right. Like his favorite thing is stay home and watch TV. So like, what are we supposed to do with that, Appa? When he was 70, we took a trip. And so we were talking about what we should do. And my mom was like, maybe we should go to Korea all together. We've never done that. He's like, I don't want to go to Korea. And then my mom was like, okay, well, should we have like a party, and, bring the cousins? And he's like, no, I don't want a party. And then my mom yelled at him and said, we have to do something. So that's where that conversation ended. So anyway, like I'm thinking about it, and I really want to do it, and I really want to do something special, because 80 is a big deal.
Sure.
In my mind, 80 is a big deal. My grandmother, so his mom passed at like 83, I think.
Mm.
And so, that kind of like number
Sure.
is like floating in my brain. My dad's like relatively healthy. He walks every day. He also eats McDonald's every day, but I feel like they cancel each other out. Um, like every day, he wakes up at like 5 in the morning, and he drives to Griffith Park, which is not really
Oh,
close. He
yeah.
drives from like the southern, like where the
Uh-huh.
10 freeway is, all the way up to Griffith Park, and
Wow.
he walks every day, and then he
Oh.
drives back, and then he goes to the McDonald's next to his house, and he eats like the same breakfast every day.
I think your dad is who I want to be when I grow up.
You know what? Like it's pretty awesome. Like
Minus the walking.
so you just want to eat McDonald's every day.
No, I just sit in front of my TV and when my kids like, oh, let's like leave me alone.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of where he's at. But anyway, so that's been on my mind. I feel like that's something that a lot of our listeners probably are thinking about too. They have aging parents, or maybe one of their parents have passed or something. And so, and even with our maybe younger listeners who might be there, it's something that you don't think about.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's one of those things where, like, when you start thinking about it, it's kind of too late, or you don't want it to be too late.
Mm.
And I don't know, there's not much to like, in this podcast, we try to think about topics that can be, there could be some tension and not controversial, but we could have a back and forth and have differing opinions. This is not really that episode, because really this episode is like, what we want you to take away from this is like, reach out to your parents and spend time with them. And like, I'm saying that as someone who needs to do that more
Sure.
himself. But yeah, I just want to take some time to think about these very, very important people in our lives that often if we're honest, we neglect and forget about because we get too busy
Mm.
with our own lives. And so, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. This episode may make you feel a little bit bad for part of it, and hopefully it'll encourage you. But yeah, I don't know, Jason. Like, as much as you're willing, what's your relationship with your parents like right now? What was it like before? How was it different?
Yeah, I think it changed a lot. Um, Growing up, I was pretty close with my mom, more so than my dad. My dad was a, kind of traditional Korean dad. I feel like not man of very few words,
Kind of a stoic.
stoic. Just worked to provide for the family. Didn't he changed a lot actually right around the time I was in like the latter part of college. He wasn't really super into church either. He just kind of, you know, and like, I think there was a lot of, like, I always felt like I didn't get the full dad experience from him.
Mm.
Like, he never taught me how to like play football or throw a ball, tie a tie, things like that. I had to learn those things from other people. Um, and so there was that. And then my mom and I were close. We were very similar as people. And so when I was younger, it worked out well. And then in college, somewhere it kind of flipped. Or my dad, he changed. I mean, he had a bout with cancer when I was in so end of high school to the beginning of college, and so I think that played a role. He like mellowed out quite a bit since then, and then he's more active in church. He's like super active now. He's like giving sermons and stuff, which is really
Oh
weird.
wow, that's actually crazy.
It is. Um, his pandemic project was, I don't know if he did the whole Bible, but he hand wrote the Bible in this like binder, and it's in our living room.
Dude, that's
Um,
impressive.
yeah, very weird for what I remember my dad when I was a kid for him to do
Mm.
that. But yeah, after college, like kind of into seminary, there was like a shift where I became much closer to my dad. The specifics of our relationship didn't change. He didn't like start talking to me more, but I think, but I think there was an understanding on my part of my dad, and I understood him more. and that created more of a connection. And then my mom and I now, it's actually I realize I can't be home for more than like 4 days,
Oh.
because then my mom and I just start clashing. Which was hard because when I went to Maryland this time, my parents came up to camp meeting to help me with Taylor, my kid. And yeah, by like Saturday, we were already starting to like, and I was like, oh, we have another like full week together. And there was a lot of little like, just because we're so similar.
Yeah.
And it's concerning because Taylor and I are very similar, and so I'm like, oh, like we're definitely gonna clash in the future.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's kind of where we are. I think, yeah, my mom and I, we clash a lot now. Yeah.
I feel like for me, it's kind of different. Like, yeah, my dad was kind of a more traditional, and I was like kind of intimidated by him growing up because I felt like he was always getting angry,
Sure.
and he was like always yelling. And my dad he's kind of he's a fun person. Like people like to hang out with him because he jokes around a lot, and he could like I remember seeing him always become kind of like life of the party in kind of these gatherings and stuff. But like at home, he would work and stuff, and I like the way I grew up. My dad worked at our store, and the store is far. Our store was like without traffic, 30 minutes in LA. So with traffic, with rush hour, it's like hour and a half or something, or an hour. So he would just sleep at the store, and so I would not see him for like 2 weeks because he would just
Oh.
sleep at the store, or like that. I think that's the longest stretch. Or we'd see him like once a week or every couple days because he would just sleep in the office because he didn't want to drive home and then come back immediately because the store closed at 9. So he'd be back like 9:30, and then he'd sleep, and then he'd have to leave at like 7 a.m. So so he did that for so long that he was like, I respected him and I loved him. And I have like some moments of my childhood where he like played with us and it was like really fun. But like through high school, he just seemed very stressed out all the time and like mad, and he would like yell. And I have some vivid memories of some shouting and like kicking over stuff, like kicking a hole in the wall. But as he's gotten older, he's also mellowed out and he's become much more, I guess, much more gentle in a way, much more thoughtful. But my mom and I don't know, it's kind of dissimilar to yours because we're fairly similar and like we get along great right now. And I don't know, part of it is like I was the baby of the family, and
Right.
I kind of like just play into that, like
Yeah.
even now, just like I'll just take whatever you want to give me, mom. That's fine. Yeah, kind of. But I think like the challenge, what I've seen for me in my relationship with my parents is, I think when my kids were younger, we made much more of an effort to FaceTime them and talk to them regularly, and like these days it's less. And I feel I feel really bad a lot about it. Like I should call them. I should call them. And life is very busy, especially during the school year. And so I keep like, I don't know. I'm sure people can resonate with that. Like, kind of beat yourself up. Like, man, I should really reach out to my parents more. And I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Do your parents get dramatic when you don't call them for a while?
No, my mom was actually really cool about it.
Okay.
My mom's really cool. My dad never really says anything about that. Like he never uses Kakao or text. But my mom, whenever we talk and it has been a while, she'll kind of mention like, "Oh, I was wondering how you guys were doing." I know, but she's always kind of like, "I know it's busy and stuff." She's very understanding actually,
see.
and super cool about it, which like kind of
Makes
makes
it
it worse. Like makes
Sure.
you feel more bad. Like, oh,
Yeah, see, my
How
mom
about- how
gets very dramatic. Or like, so I try to FaceTime her with my kids every Sunday, but the problem for us is there's a big time difference.
yeah.
So it's kind of hard to match sometimes. So if it's been like 2 weeks since we FaceTimed, she'll just send these like very dramatic texts, usually all along the lines of like, "Are you alive? Like, should I be concerned?" And then, or I'll like FaceTime her. She's like, "Oh, you're alive. I was getting worried that you hadn't
Like
called me in 2 weeks."
like passive
Very
aggressive.
passive aggressively, and it's like, oh my gosh, like okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Last week we had a lot of things to do, and I guess that makes it. I don't want to say easier, but like when I get those texts, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, fine, I'll text you.
Yeah. You know,
Very
like
dramatic person.
I think I guess I want to encourage you to like when your kids get older, it gets even harder. That's all
I
I want to say,
imagine
man.
the schedule. Yeah, you
It
know,
gets harder.
when your kids were younger and you FaceTimed your parents, like, what did they talk about, or how did that conversation go between your parents and your kids?
Yeah, so we are like hack is to do it over dinner because it's easy to keep my kids
Mm-hmm.
seated and not moving. So we'll put the phone or the tablet or whatever, and then they will eat. And it's just like they will talk about, ask them what they're eating. They'll ask them about like how school is. But my kids are, especially my daughter, is very like she wants to tell them lots of things, and she
Uh-huh.
wants to like show off herself to them. And my son too. So like my son was into Rubik's cubing, so whenever they came, he would come and he'd show them,
Oh,
and then
okay.
he would do it. And they'd be like, "Wow," And then my daughter will like do a ballet dance or like spin around. But I don't know. I also get the feeling my parents don't like talking to us for that long.
Uh-huh.
So, like, we'll talk. We don't have really long conversations. I don't know how it is for you. Like, when you call your parents, like, do you guys talk for a while? Like, my parents would like 10 minutes, and then my mom will have this like she has her keyword or like her code word that I've picked up as like this is the time to end the game, and she goes, "Okay."
My
Which
Uh-huh.
I gotta say is fine with me.
Sure, right, no, of
I'm not
course.
like all sad about it. I'm like,
No, no, no.
great, because
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's hard to FaceTime your parents with your kids.
It is because the opposite is what we experience. Is my kids don't have things to show off to my parents on the phone, so they're different from your kids in that regard.
I
They
feel like
do
your kids
it
are younger.
to
Your
us
kids are younger.
and my in-laws a lot, but through the phone, they don't like really talking to my parents on the phone. So a lot of times I have to like force them to like say hi. And then the problem I think is because at least for my mom, she wants to see the kids, but then she's checking in on me too. And so the minute the conversation shifts, my kids lose interest because there's the
It's
interaction.
not about them
Yeah.
anymore. It's like not focused on them.
Yeah, and then it drags on because my parents, they don't have that keyword, so the FaceTime's on, but no one's interacting because my parents, their attention drifts to the TV, and my kids are not just playing. So I'm just holding a phone, like watching my parents watch TV. I was like, and then I'll be like, okay, say bye to High Money, and then my mom's like, oh, parcel like already. I'm like, oh, you're, yeah. So
That's
very
hard.
different dynamics that we have.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting, just kind of our different experiences. And, I think what's challenging, and you kind of brought it up in just what you just shared right now, is, at our stage, and for many of our listeners in their stage, you have kids you're raising, but then you also have these other, they're like, sometimes they're kind of like kids, your parents that
Yeah.
you're like trying to take care of as well. Some people, you guys have them like actually in your home. Sometimes it's like they're away, but that's challenging. And obviously, kids take so much focus and so much like thought and energy that it's hard to remember your parents during all of that.
It is. I think there's a phenomenon. I forgot what it's called, but they say the most difficult time of life is that like 40s ish time period because most people have young kids they're raising, and then they also have aging parents who some or most have they start developing kind of these longer chronic issues. So now you are the caretakers of two different sets of people with somewhat equal amounts of need. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of where a lot of the burnout comes. That's where a lot of like relationship issues happen between your spouse because of that pressure. And then there's also a lot of cases two sets of parents with two sets of that. And you know the worst case is when both sets of parents are going through kind of health issues. In my situation, I think we're somewhat on the lucky side where my parents are a little bit healthier, but not even, because my dad does have a history of cancer, and like there's always kind of like that worry of something happening in the future. But we haven't hit that wall yet, and I'm just kind of waiting. Like, oh man, when that happens, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah. My parents also are fairly healthy. I actually am very thankful to golf for that. Like my mom, she golfs a lot still, and she golfed a lot, and so I think she was like she got a checkup, and like her bones are pretty solid. Like she doesn't have osteoporosis. My mom has like other stuff, but she doesn't have that, and she's like it's because I golfed and I'm in the sun and like I don't know how it is for you, but like, do your parents like share with you stuff? Do they talk to you about like their lives at all?
No, and I think that's kind of that's something that I've kind of not struggled with, but like this idea of like I was never I was never able to fully communicate with my parents because there's a language barrier, right? And I think I speak Korean well enough, pretty good, but it's impossible for me to have deep conversations with my parents because I just don't have the vocabulary, and they don't have the vocabulary in English to do it. And so the way I processed personal issues and struggles and things was to talk to other people, one of whom is my co-host. And I think when my issues got deeper, I stepped away from my parents more. And yeah, I don't talk to them about things, and they don't really talk to me about things. Any like big life changes I've had, like switching jobs or like churches, I usually tell them after the fact. Part of it is because my mom tells people and I can't, like, you know what I mean? But also it's just, they're not the first people I think of when I have to have a big choice and I'm struggling. They're not the people I go to.
Yeah.
I just inform them of the fact of my decision after I've made it. I don't know, is it different for you?
No, I think that's actually pretty similar for me.
Right.
Recently, like my mom, this is a couple months ago, she was like going up Palm Springs or something with some friends. And so it's like a car of like 4 harmonies, right? And then they got into this really bad car accident where it was like everyone is fine, like, praise the Lord, but it could have been really, really bad. And then my mom told me like a couple weeks later, like, hey, I almost died. I was like, what? And that's how she said it. She's like, yeah, I almost died. It was crazy. I got into this car accident, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of explained to me. And, I mean, part of it is kind of like, yeah, I guess if I knew, I couldn't do anything and everything was fine. But I was like, why didn't you tell me? And she was like, because I'm fine. But part of me wanted to know. But I also get why, she wouldn't tell me, because I guess I'm kind of like that. I think we have this relationship of like, we don't want each other to worry. Like I don't want my parents to worry about me and my family. And I think they also don't want me to worry about them.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know if you had this experience, but have you seen or heard of the movie? I think it's called The Farewell by
No.
Aquafina. And so the premise of this movie, I haven't seen it, is the main character, she has a grandmother who I think got diagnosed with cancer, and the family decides, Asian family decides, not to tell the grandmother of the diagnosis,
Okay.
and so they're just letting her live her life till the end without telling her. Um, and that's such an Asian thing to do because I didn't watch it because I lived it, because the literal exact same thing happened to my grandmother. And there was a moment where I didn't tell this to my mom, but I was really angry at her because she was kind of updating me on my grandmother's health, and it was all very vague. She wouldn't tell me a lot of things. She was like, "Oh, she's not doing so well, but like she's still going on walks, whatever." So I thought she's like, okay, she's sick, but like, it's not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then my cousin called me, like a week later. He's like, "Hey, are you gonna go see grandma?" And I was like, "I wasn't planning to, but it seems like I should." And he was like, "Buy a ticket today and go." And I was like, oh, "Okay." So I did. I bought the ticket. I went, and she seemed okay. And then she passed away like a week later.
Oh wow.
It turns out it was like really bad, and like my mom didn't tell me, and I was like, why would you not, like, if my cousin hadn't called me, I would have never had the chance to go and say goodbye to her. And I think that dynamic is truly like an Asian thing. Like, I don't know, have you experienced that? Like, I feel like I hear that anecdotally from other Asian families where like we don't want to talk about this thing, but
Yeah, yeah, I've had those experiences. It hasn't been in that same context of like health and someone sick. Because I remember when my uncle was sick, my mom called me. She's like, "You have to come right now," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like that was like out of the blue. I was like working. I remember I was like working at a Panera in Loma Linda or something. I don't know why, and she was like, "Come right now. Your uncle's sick."
oh, sorry, you were working at that.
Not,
You
I was
worked
working
at
on a sermon at
Okay,
Panera.
okay,
I
okay. I
didn't
was
have a
like,
job
why
at
were you
Panera.
okay.
I had a job. I was working there, and then like I had to take off. So, but there are elements of pain and struggle within our family that doesn't really get talked about.
Yeah, and I think
And certain
that's
people who went through things, we don't really talk about that.
yeah. I think that's largely Asian. I think it's true for most of the continent, but I do think that is concentrated in East Asia. I think probably because of the Confucian roots that it has. You just don't talk about it. And for me, that was, I think, a big source of contention. Even when my dad was sick, at the time, I didn't really know how bad it was. It was only after I got older and I talked to like my aunts that I realized like,
Yeah.
oh, it's actually a lot more serious than I thought it was.
Yeah, when I think about that though, like I can see myself being the same way.
Sure.
Just like you don't want your kids to worry, you don't want people to worry about you, so you don't really tell them the full truth. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but like I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. And I think that I don't know. I don't know if that contributes to a worser relationship or if that's like good or and healthy to like have
Yeah.
boundaries like that. Because the flip side is like it sounds terrible too, where your parent is overly shares
Sure.
overly and is like dramatic and like always keep making you worried about them. Like that sounds terrible. So I mean, if I had to choose, I'd probably choose the other one. But I wonder if that has led to some kind of barrier in the relationship because we're not super honest with each other.
Yeah, and the big question I have, because I think this becomes an issue because I grew up in America, and so I have these, I guess, Western cultural ideologies, whereas I feel like if I just grew up in Korea, this is normal. I guess I don't even know because I wouldn't know, but so my question then is like, what happens with me and my children,
Yeah.
right? So like you mentioned, like, will I do the same thing my parents did? how much of that Eastern culture ideology is embedded in my being, I don't know yet. And so that's kind of the question. And I think a lot of our listeners, they're kind of, at least the ones that are in my life, they're a couple steps ahead of me where their kids are a lot older. And I'm very curious as to how different their relationship with their kids were versus their relationship with their parents,
Yeah.
and how that transition happens too.
Yeah. I would love to hear those stories if
Yeah.
anyone, listening would share kind of like how they are. Because you would imagine that being a Korean American, we would have some sort of a mixed response. Some of this kind of East Asian Korean part, and some of more of like a Western American, modern American response as well. And so I'd be really curious to know how people are navigating that right now. Because I think, if you think about our Korean American churches, the people who are like not the oldest, but like older, I guess maybe even the oldest. Like if we think about our church, the Korean American church is in its like first generation in
Right.
a way, right? Like the people who started it, they're like the oldest people in the church now. So they're still here, and their kids are like in college or graduate school or working, and so they're probably have a lot of sense of like this exact topic, how their relationship with their children is the same or different than their relationship with their parents.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about as often, but it's like, especially the Korean Adventist world, it's still really new. There's not multiple generations for us to look
Yeah.
back on. We're kind of creating it as we go, and yeah, it's fascinating. This is a topic we'll talk about in the future, but like the idea of like jobs and vocation, like we're still kind of in the second generation. So we had our initial parents' generation who came and they just did whatever jobs they could get, owned a store or what have you, and then their kids, most of our listeners, they became doctors. So what happens to that third generation? Like that's
Yeah.
anyway, that's a different topic, but yeah, relationally, I'm very curious as to how it evolves as we go through these different generations.
Yeah. There's I forget what the website is called, but there is a website where it asks you information about like your relationship with your parents and very like practical things, not like, is it good or bad, but like how often do you see them? How old are they? And then they'll tell you how many more times you'll actually be with them. And honestly, I haven't done it because like, I'm actually kind of scared to see that.
Yes.
They'll take their age and they'll take, data
Right.
trends, and they'll be like, you actually will only spend like 12 more days with them. Like you're like, oh my gosh. And so I'm honestly kind of scared to do that because I don't know, man. Like I don't know if our listeners can tell. If you could tell, like I feel a lot of guilt about this. Like I can do better, man, and I gotta like spend time with them. I gotta call them, and that's been, like I said, it's been really on my mind these days.
Yeah, I mean, we both have siblings. Incidentally, we have siblings that live a lot closer to our parents than we do.
That is true.
How does that dynamic work for you, your family?
Um, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure actually. I know they spend more time. My mom will, like when they were younger, my brother's kids were younger. My mom would babysit and do a lot more of that. But like my brother's kids are fairly like they're all pretty much. They're older now. Like their oldest one is almost a teenager. The other one is 10 now, and then they have a younger one, and she's in school, full-time school. So I think like that part of it, that was a challenge because there was a place and there was a need for my parents to be there. But as they entered school and got older, they didn't really need that anymore. And my brother's family is very busy too. So I know they get together often and they like see each other for special events and whatnot. But I don't know, like I'm jealous of that. But knowing me, I feel like even if I was there, I'd still have this problem. I just feel like I'm a bad son.
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things like in our minds we understand it, but then it's just to implement it is a, I don't want to call it a disruption because it makes it sound like it's trivial. It's not. It's important, but it does disrupt the rhythm and the flow. And I mean, for me, even like calling them on a Sunday, I feel like it like disrupts our Sunday schedule. Um, but yeah, I definitely do understand the same thing you're talking about. I think of it too, like, yeah, how many more vacations do we have with my parents? How many more times can I see my parents? And yeah, it's one of those very uncomfortable things that we don't want to linger on, but we just kind of have to, if nothing else, for us to reach out and see them. Because everyone always says when they're gone, you're going to wish you had spent more time with them. And it's one of those unfortunate paradoxes of life where you never really understand it until it happens. You know what I mean? Because I've been to a billion funerals where they always say, call your parents, spend time with them. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do that. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. And I don't know. Maybe that is just a paradox of life, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where the important things get pushed away by the urgent things.
That's good.
The urgent things that are unimportant in our lives. And, you know, we should feel thankful that our parents are not like super overbearing, you know, and like, call me now, call me now, call me now. Like they are, and it's actually really sad when you think about it. Like they're willing and, you know what I mean? They're like, they acknowledge and they're willing to be put on the back burner.
Right.
And like, dude, that's so sad, actually.
It is. And that's being a good parent, right?
I mean, that's true.
That's what it
and giving the space to their children, respecting our lives, and respecting what we have going on, and so they're not going to be like overbearing like that and ask for our attention all the time. I mean, that probably means that our parents are generally like mentally like healthy individuals, like not needing, you know, that constant attention. But it also just like it just makes me more sad a little bit that I have not spent the time with them that I wish I have had.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, are there ways we can build in opportunities to see them? Like, you know, because you mentioned your dad's turning 80, and obviously that's a big deal. You know, those are events where you're like, yeah, no matter what, we're gonna fly down, even if your dad refuses to have a party. Like, you're gonna do something. Are there events that we're able to like build into our schedule to make it more seamless?
You know, I don't think it has to do with like events.
Okay.
I think, and what I've learned about, and this is kind of a general principle on like changing ourselves, is it begins with an understanding of like who we are. That like I have to say now, I am a person who reaches out to my parents weekly. You know, I think that concept came from Atomic Habits. That it's not about like you doing behaviors. It's you have to understand that that's the kind of person you are. You're not a lazy person who does productive things. Like, no, I'm a productive person now, and I do what productive people do. And so I almost need to just like ask God, or, you know, like to remind me and show me, no, like I am a good son, and I will do things good sons do. Because I feel like the events, that's not going to work for me. So.
Right. You're right. Because if you wait for their like, 70, 80, 90, like, there's not that many. And then, you're right. The events it's great. Once in a while, you have these like big, like the one we had. We haven't had one of those in 10 years. Right?
Yeah.
So it's too inconsistent to plan around that.
One of the things that I did, actually, that I am really thankful for. And maybe I'll just share this and we'll end because this podcast is getting very depressing and I'm like way more sad. This is not what I planned. But, and I do think this kind of speaks to your question. So my dad is like, he is a laborer. Like he likes to work and he doesn't like to not, oh, he likes to watch TV, but he also likes to labor. And so I've talked about to him many times about coming up to my house and, you know, it's easier to fly 2 people to Portland than for 4 people to fly to LA, right? It's cheaper. And so he'd always like, he would come for like an event, like you were saying, like Torjanchi or Pegir, you know, one year celebration or 100-day celebration. But my dad, he is like not shy about the fact that he doesn't want to be there. And what I mean by that is he's not mean about it, but he arrives the day before the event, he stays for the event, and he leaves the next day. Always. Yeah. So it's like 2 nights, 3 days, always. But in September, he stayed at my house for like a whole week. But the reason why is because I had a house project that I needed to do. And I don't know. So I put hardwood flooring in my upstairs. It was all carpet. And I talked to him about it and I kind of threw it out there and he was kind of like back and forth. And then eventually he decided that he would do it. And so he came and he spent like a whole week with us. And it's because we worked together. And like what was cool was that in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, number one, it's great to get hardwood done in my floor. And like I get to use my dad as labor, you know, whatever. But the other thing in my mind was this is going to be great because we've never done anything like this together. Like this will be a important memory and experience for me to do this. And like my home is different because of it. Right. And so I was thinking that and I was like, that's great. So I'm really glad he's coming. When he was here, he said the same thing. He said, this is a really good thing for you and me to do together, to have this memory of working on your house together. And that was actually very emotional for me. Like I was like kind of touched that he thought about it in those same terms. And so, you know, I think part of it then is to answer your question is like we need to know our parents better. If we knew our parents and if I knew my parents better, then we could spend time together in ways that are more meaningful for both parties, where it doesn't feel like I'm doing this because I'm supposed to. But I'm doing this because I want to, I need to. And so like that memory is going to live on in my life. Like my dad and I did this together. Like how cool was that?
Yeah. Just I guess real briefly before we close, just like a quick story. When I first started playing golf in seminary with you, you know, my dad's been playing golf his whole life and, you know, he was like super into golf when I was younger. I think he was shooting at his peak, he was shooting like low 80s. And so he was like super into it. And so I remember I came home from break one day and, I had those like practice balls, like the wiffle balls. And so I was out in the front yard and I was telling my dad like, okay, like teach me, like I'm going to show you and I want you to like give me feedback. And he's like, all right. And so like I address and I swing and I hit the ball and I look up and he's gone. I'm like, where is he? And I look and he's in the kitchen. I'm like, what the heck? So I go in, I'm like, Appa, like, how is my swing? And he was like, I could tell by the way you stood that you're terrible at this. And I have nothing I can teach you. I was like, okay. So when I was home this past, last week, we were like, not cleaning the garage, we were like doing stuff. And like, there was a bunch of golf clubs. And he was like asking me about like how I was doing. And I was like telling him like, oh, actually I'm like playing a lot more. And I was like, I actually hit my personal best the last time I played. I hit a 108, by the way.
Okay. That's progress.
Also, Pastor Paul Chung hit 88.
Okay. Well, I hate him now. So
I think you are closer to me than you are to him, but that's a different story.
How dare you?
So we brought the clubs out and he started like teaching me stuff. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, he's teaching me how to golf. And like, you know, like, oh, move your hips this way. Like, and even like what I do is I always try to do this first. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's the first time he's teaching me something. So I don't know. That was kind of like a nice, like full circle moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work. I hope I can make him proud. Probably not, but it's the gesture and the moment that
Yeah.
remain in my memory. Like he taught me how to play golf. So
Yeah, those are super special. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think if anyone listening today is going to take anything away from this podcast, it's call your parents.
call your parents
Call your
as soon
parents.
as the music hits and it's done. Press stop. Call your parents.
Yeah, take this as a sign to reach out to your parents and have a conversation with them, do something with them. And they're super important people. Like all of us would not be who we are without
Sure.
them. So the time is always much shorter than we expect. Call your parents. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the podcast. I hope it didn't make you depressed in any way or make you too sad. But if your parents are here, you have time, we have time. Call your mom, call your dad. We'll see you next time.